We've been talking all morning about today's dedication of the National September 11th Memorial Museum. This $700 million project in Lower Manhattan promises to tell the story of 9/11 in a way that's never been told before. Don Dahler's in Jersey City, New Jersey, with the story of one of the victims and his fiancée. Don, good morning.
Good morning. We are at the Empty Sky Memorial right across the Hudson River from Ground Zero. Of course, it's called Empty Sky because you used to be able to see two enormous towers over there. Now, if it wasn't so foggy, you could see the new tower. There's also a memorial there and now a museum. But overall, that area is still considered sacred ground, especially for people who lost loved ones.
Sergio was with Ladder 132 in Brooklyn. He had been there for just a few months.
As Tanya Villanueva-Tepper talks to students about what happened on September 11th, she wears the photograph of fireman Sergio Villanueva around her neck. They had been engaged to be married.
When I realized that Sergio wasn't coming home, and then I became so compelled to share his story so that the victims were not forgotten.
Why do you think a museum was necessary? Why not just this beautiful memorial to remember these people?
Because people, long after we're all gone, they need to know the story of what happened that day.
The most intimate materials of this museum carry the biggest stories.
Inside the museum, a gently sloping walkway takes you 7 stories to Ground Zero. The first thing that strikes you is the sheer size. Alice Greenwald is the museum's director.
As you come in and then you see this view and get a sense of the scale, how big this space is.
Work on the museum continued, even as we sat in front of one of the large exhibits to talk.
This truck, so powerful. Every firefighter who responded from Ladder 3 that day never made it back.
The museum's design was not without controversy. It exists next to a repository holding thousands of unidentified remains. Decisions about which artifacts and which facts to include were often difficult to make. They put sensitive exhibits, such as pictures of people jumping from the burning buildings, inside alcoves with warning signs.
It has to be presented in a sensitive way, in a way that is safe and responsible. You are not going to come into a cabinet of horrors, but the subject is horrible. So it's how you present it, and it's also how you balance that story.
Was there any concern that you would be immortalizing the hijackers by having them be part of the museum and maybe even glorifying them to like-minded people?
Well, yes, absolutely, there was that concern. And that concern tempered the way we chose to present the story of the perpetrators. We're presenting them as criminals. That's who they were. It in no way glorifies them. It in no way suggests that these are people we should emulate.
They need to know that human lives were lost in a very senseless and tragic way, and they have to have that personal connection to it.
All right, we're on the way.
But ultimately, the 9/11 Museum is about the ordinary people like Sergio who went to work that day and never came home. Their photos and their personal items pack an emotional punch larger than any twisted beam or crushed fire truck.
If it weren't for the pain, you wouldn't know what joy was.
Tanya's own journey since 9/11 has become part of one of the museum's exhibits. Her thoughts on loss and renewal are included in a time-lapse film showing how the new tower rose from the literal ashes of the old.
Hold your sorrow gently.
Hearing my voice, and one of the things that I always tell my fellow widows is to hold your sorrow gently.
What does that mean?
It means don't be so hard on yourself in your grief. You know, you treat your sorrow, you have the right to have that sorrow for the person that you lost.
There will be many tears shed at this museum. The emotional impact is almost overwhelming at times, especially some of the exhibits that feature voices, the cockpit recordings, the transmissions by first responders, and the voicemails from loved ones. Nora, the museum opens to the general public next week on May 21st.
All right, Don, thank you.